Hey all, here are OS Reviews. You're watching our hands-on first look at the Dell Precision 7520. This is part of Dell's Workstation series of laptops, which are aimed primarily at corporate environments because the parts are easily configurable, so you can swap out the hard drive, the SSD, the memory, and Dell sells them in all types of configurations, which IT departments really like. But also, you can find this for yourself on Amazon as well if you are interested. And all of the workstations are pretty solid in terms of specs. In fact, they pack nearly flagship level capabilities for a non-gaming laptop, almost like a desktop replacement. So again, you do have some pretty high-end processing power, but it comes at the expense of having a much bulkier and thicker frame that is also significantly heavier than most consumer laptops that are easier to carry around. In fact, this machine weighs in at over 6.3 pounds. So taking a closer look in terms of the base model, it actually starts at $1,300 from Dell's website, which isn't bad, but the base configuration, the specs are merely average. There's an Intel Core i5 processor, along with a 500GB hard drive and 8 gigs of built-in RAM. But the more typical configurations are actually running on the Core i7, the version that we have configured in front of us here, and comes with 32 gigs of built-in DDR4 RAM. They can even be expanded to 64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, so that version can be picked up from Dell as well. And it has a 1TB SSD in addition to a 15.6-inch IPS Full HD display, but the display can also be upgraded to an Ultra HD or a 4K panel, and there's even a version with a touchscreen as well. Again, definitely not cheap, but in terms of giving you excellent performance, if you really do need that, and stability, it could be worth taking a closer look at. So all of the workstations are really well built, and the 7520 is no exception, but it is a slight shift for Dell compared to past workstations that we've seen, such as the 5000 series, which had an aluminum design on the top. The new versions of the workstations are covered by a soft touch rubber material, making it easier to grip, but on paper it doesn't seem quite as premium. However, there's still a layer of magnesium underneath the soft touch rubber, so it's still going to be very much sturdy and reinforced. Now on the side, you'll find access to a Type-C port for charging, a full HDMI port, a USB 3.0 port. The back houses the Ethernet port along with a standard Dell charger. So they give you the option of using either Type-C for charging, or you can plug in additional Type-C peripherals or use the older Dell type charger. And on the right-hand spine, we have an SD card reader, a standard 3.5mm headphone jack, and 3 more USB 3.0 ports for a combined total of 4 USB 3.0 ports and a Kingston lock. So what you notice is missing from this workstation compared to past generations from Dell is a built-in DVD reader, which used to be standard, especially across, again, their workstation series, where retaining this feature on a slightly bulkier machine still made sense. But again, heading into 2019, it seems like even these bulky workstation desktop replacement laptops are getting rid of even the DVD slot. So it's no longer here. If you want that, you would have to connect it to an external adapter, even though it's still thick enough technically to house it. It's just Dell decided to get rid of it and probably pack in more memory or additional components. On the back, you'll find an array of ventilation grills. This thing does run quite hot, as you can imagine, with essentially desktop grade CPU, a 3 GHz Core i7 processor, so it's definitely suggested to use this on a desk, especially since it's already a really heavy laptop, so you don't want to really put it on your lap for too long, and you'll definitely hear the fan kick in every once in a while. On the bottom, you also see some status LEDs for the charging, as well as when the hard drive is being read, and that's pretty much it. There's a slight taper. It's definitely a sleeker, more slimmed down machine as far as the aesthetics are concerned, with these rounded corners where the workstations of the past used to be all blocky and with very sharp edges. So opening up the laptop, you can use just one hand. It does have a, again, pretty steady hinge. We have a spacious island-style keyboard, which is tactile and responsive, has over 1.7 millimeters of travel and feedback. There's also the typical kind of trackpad inspired by ThinkPads if you ever need this extra precision, in addition to the regular touchpad area. The touchpad is fine, but it's one of the less modern elements of the design. It's smaller than many consumer-orienting laptops and measures roughly 4 inches diagonally. It's a plastic trackpad as well, as opposed to being made out of glass, which I would have preferred, but it is what it is. And there are separate buttons for clicking down left and right, as opposed to the trackpad itself physically pressing down, although users can always just plug in a mouse if they really would prefer that. On the top right hand corner, you'll find the power key and the hinge. You can see it's very sturdy. It's separated into two different zones. We have the Dell logo and then just the 15.6-inch display itself. So a pretty typical size with fair bezels. This is obviously not going to be as slim as Dell's XPS series like the XPS 13, which are ultra slim, but I would say it's fair. We also have an HD webcam on the top along with dual microphones for noise cancellation. Again, with these high-end configurations, it really shouldn't be a surprise. The performance is a breeze. You can open up and stream 4K content on YouTube while having 20, 30 other tabs open in a Chrome browser, and it still runs like butter. In terms of battery performance, it's another area or a highlight for the 7520 because it will last over 6 hours of moderate usage with Wi-Fi turned on, with Bluetooth turned on. Again, over 6 hours is usually a pretty good metric, especially for a workstation class laptop. Especially considering that this is a really power-hungry processing power underneath the hood. It's by no means one of Intel's ultra power-saving versions of their processors. And the display itself is a matte surface, so it offers no problems as far as glare is concerned. Also reaches over 300 nits of brightness, making it fairly readable even when there's a good amount of light in the room, and offers strong viewing angles as an IPS display. And although it really isn't a gaming machine per se, if you are a consumer looking to pick one of these up, it will still run pretty demanding titles without too many problems, especially if you pick up, again, a version that has 32 or 64 gigs of built-in RAM. The graphics processor, the GPU, isn't as powerful as on some gaming-specific machines, but for, I would say, 90% of the titles, 95% of the titles, even the heavier ones, you really shouldn't have any problems playing it on this computer. So that's more or less it as far as our hands-on, just first look, first impressions of the Precision 7520 from the Workstation series. Again, it doesn't have too many surprises. As usual, it's a very powerful computer, almost top of the line as far as workstations are concerned. Only slight quirks would be the trackpad, again, is still a little bit antiquated, and the fact that you no longer have an option to have a CD or DVD-ROM. But anyways, you can find out more details in the links down below if you are interested. You can stay tuned also for our full review coming out soon. But for now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This has been the Dell Precision 7520.